Hello and welcome back to the channel, where it is time for episode 1 of series 2 of my first impressions videos, which will be focusing on the Sega Dreamcast 10 games that I've picked up in recent times that I've yet to invest any time into. Now, if you're new to my channel or just new to this series, what I do with my first impressions videos is play a game for around about 60 to 90 minutes that I have not played at all in any meaningful way previously, and summarize my first thoughts on the game in terms of graphics, gameplay, sound, what kind of content and lifespan I think they're going to offer you before deciding whether it's a game that I'm going to come back to and potentially finish, and then giving it a final grade. And as you can see from the footage playing and the name of the video, we are indeed taking a look at Sega Rally 2, a game that originally saw release in the arcades in February of 1998 before coming home to the Dreamcast in January of 1999 in Japan. It got a PAL release in October of 1999 and then finally a North American release in November of 1999. Once you hit the main menu, you'll see you've got a variety of choices. We've got arcade mode, 10-year championship, time attack, 2-player battle, records, car settings, car profiles, options, and saving and loading your data. When you head into options, you've got a variety of things you can change, whether you want it as miles per hour or kilometers an hour, whether you want a female or male voice companion, the difficulty, as well as a few other things. You can also change the control pad layout and also check your sound settings. Once you go into the car selection screen, you will see there is a plethora of cars in comparison to the original Sega Rally. All of the original cars from that game return, plus there are quite a few new ones as well, and the game does have a fair amount of unlockable cars which you can get your hands on as well. So like always, I'm going to start with visuals first, and as I'm well aware of all the racing games that were out on all the systems when Sega Rally 2 came out, it's very easy for me to say that Sega Rally 2 was the best looking racing game on any system at this point in time. Everything was vastly superior to what we'd seen before. The levels of detail in the cars, the tracks, the draw distance, all of it was massively superior to anything else. There's more variety in Sega Rally 2 than there was in the original game as well, because we've got more courses, alternative routes for the courses, and loads more cars in the game, so there's much more visual variety and you do not get bored of seeing the same things over and over again, perhaps like you did a little bit on the original game. But that doesn't mean the game is perfect, because one thing you'll notice is that the frame rate fluctuates quite a bit, and this is actually fairly noticeable. It's not something that I would usually pick up on, but when it feels as major as it is in this game, it's noticeable. But thankfully you can input a code to lock the game at 30 frames per second, and I genuinely think this is the best way to play the game, just because it offers you a consistent experience that you're not continually met with this fluctuating change, which is definitely noticeable. You can actually also put it in a 60 frame per second mode where it tries to maintain it, but at the expense of graphical detail. There are actually a couple of other slight negative things that I noticed as well. There is this mist in the background on most of the courses, and some people might say, oh, it's just due to the courses, but I don't think it is. I think it's actually there to hide the little bit of pop-up that's in the game, and the pop-up's got this slight peeling effect, similar to what I've spoken about on Snowball Kids on the N64 a while back. Obviously, it's nowhere near as bad as anything that we'd seen in the previous generation, and on certain courses, it's definitely not as noticeable as others. So moving on to the sound effects and music next, and the sound effects within Sega Rally 2 are actually very, very good. I don't really have any issues here. The cars sound great, all of the sound effects within the races sound great, and you have a choice of a male or a female co-driver, which is a nice bit of variety too. In terms of music, we've got all new tracks within the game, and really music is, like I've said many times previously, a question of personal preference. Now, the music tracks that I've experienced within the game so far all sound absolutely fine. They're perfectly okay to drive to. I wouldn't really say there's anything that screams out as an all-time classic theme in here, and I do feel the original Sega Rally is actually a little bit stronger in this area. But like always, I will give you some samples so you can make that decision for yourselves. So moving on to the gameplay next, and this for me was where the changes between Sega Rally and Sega Rally 2 really start to show, because they genuinely feel like completely different games. Now, the basic premise of Sega Rally 2 is exactly the same. Race through each course in either the arcade mode or the 10-year championship mode, trying to finish each course without running out of time, and then try and be in first place by the time you finish the last race. That part of the game is exactly the same, pretty much there or thereabouts, but the amount of depth on offer in Sega Rally 2 is where it really does change, because the tuning options for the cars is such a massive part, I found, in Sega Rally 2. Just from playing it for about 1 hour, if you jump into this and go for the 10-year championship and don't bother changing anything in terms of the car setups, you are not going to get anywhere. You're going to quickly run out of time and be left very, very frustrated. And for me, the biggest thing was the tyre choice, because when you go into that 10-year championship and it gives you the layout of each track and what the course is made up of, whether it's gravel or ice, mud, that sort of thing, you need to pick your tyre choice appropriately, and this cannot be overstated, because this makes a massive difference. Just simply playing the game, I should say, for 1 hour made me very much aware of it. And this game in general is a genuine challenge. It feels very, very hard. It does. Even on easy, I felt that I was actually playing the game relatively well, but I just couldn't get through all of the courses to finish it, arcade mode, even once, I should say. And the game is really a genuine challenge. I read a comment about Sega Rally 2 recently that you don't beat Sega Rally 2, Sega Rally 2 beats you, and I genuinely feel that felt right just from playing the game for 1 hour or so. Obviously the game does have much more variety in terms of the way it plays than the original game, simply because there are so many more cars on offer, and obviously you've got quite a few unlockable cars as well, so I don't feel you get as bored, because there's so many more different cars and they all handle suitably different as well. And then of course you've got the tuning options on top of that, so the gameplay is definitely much more in-depth than the first game. Now that won't necessarily appeal to some people, and I'm not sure at this stage in my life whether it appeals to me as much either. One of the draws about Sega Rally is that you can just put it in and play it, and you don't really need to worry about editing the car settings. And that was actually something with Colin McRae Dirt 2, when I did a first impressions video on that for the Wii, that I found very, very appealing. Yes, the cars all handled differently, but you don't need to be changing loads of things with them. You simply just pick your car and go, whereas Sega Rally 2 is way more in depth, so it will appeal to more simulation based racing fans rather than pure arcade racing fans. So moving on to the content and lifespan next, and you've got an arcade mode which has a championship and a practice mode just like the original Sega Rally. We've got a time attack mode, we've got a 2-player mode, which obviously I didn't sample for the video, but I'm assuming as long as it performs okay, it should be a really good 2-player mode, because obviously there's far more cars, more tracks on this game as well than the original Sega Rally, so I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be good either. And obviously we've got the main mode of play, the 10-year championship, and this is where you go through each of the courses for 10 years basically, trying to win it every year, and this is how you unlock all of the other cars. Now for the sake of the video, I actually put in a code on the main menu screen to unlock all of the other cars, just so I could show you some more of them in the video. But I definitely feel this mode of play will be a massive challenge, a real challenge, because I couldn't even get past the first year playing it with my time for this video. So I definitely think the game offers you a long-term challenge in terms of gameplay and understanding the best way to tune the cars to be successful in the races. Now you've also got a car profile mode as well, where you go into it, select a car, and you're given a narrated story basically for each car, saying how they came to be rally cars and that kind of thing. And that's actually quite interesting as well, and it gives you a bit of background on the cars, which I think is nice. And there is information for every single car on here, so there's actually quite a lot to listen to on here as well. And I think overall, for a launch title on the Dreamcast, Sega Rally 2 actually has a really impressive amount of content, and its lifespan, assuming you like that in-depth racing experience, would be very strong as well.
And sports a distinctive front bumper and large spoiler.
Now, as always, that leaves me with my two final questions. Is Sega Rally 2 a game that I'm going to come back to and play more of? and what final grade am I going to give it based on my first impressions within the hour or so that I played it. In terms of whether I think I'm going to play Sega Rally 2 some more in the future, I'm kind of on the fence at the moment because I'm not going to say yes and I'm not going to say no. I might play it a bit from time to time, but I don't think it's going to be a racing game that I could invest loads and loads of time into on a daily basis to try and get really, really good at. It's probably a kind of game that I might just put in from time to time just to have a change and to play something different. In terms of a final grade, I'm going to give it a very respectable B because I can appreciate the quality that it has to offer, and it's a Dreamcast release title as well, so I think that makes it even more impressive. The visual performance probably isn't up to a standard that you might have wanted, but it's not terrible, and there is quite a lot of content here, I feel, especially for a launch title on the system, so a B is my final score. I don't think it quite got the same reception as the original Sega Rally game did. I had to flick through some scores, and overall it doesn't quite seem to have scored as well as that game. For those reasons, I'm not entirely sure what they were, but a B is my final grade. Let me know your thoughts down below on what you thought of Sega Rally 2 back when it came out, and of course, if you've played it anytime recently, what you think of it nowadays and how well it's held up all of these years later. Like always, I'll be back in the near future with another video. Goodbye for now.